My name is Sean Hillman, and I am a PhD candidate at University of Toronto in the Department for the Study of Religion, with a double collaboration in South Asian Studies and Bioethics at the Joint Center for Bioethics and the Center for South Asian Studies. By training, I'm a textualist and a medical anthropologist, and in my professional life, I am a hospital-based clinical ethicist, a Buddhist prison chaplain, and also an officiant. So in the university context, at the Department for the Study of Religion and the Center for Buddhist Studies, the Tibetan language studies are classical or textual, if you will. When I was living in India, and this is when I first started studying Tibetan language, it was both classical. I studied at the Library for Tibetan Works and Archives, and also some colloquial training in addition with tutors in India. And then I moved to the Institute for Buddhist Dialectics, where the full syllabus is entirely in Tibetan, so that obviously enhanced both my, out of necessity, enhanced both my colloquial and classical understanding of Tibetan. Then coming back to the university context, Professor Garrett was so helpful and continues to be in my transition from the monastic context. The syllabus and the pedagogy are obviously very, very different, and I needed to make sort of a phase shift back from where I started in academics out into the monastic context, but then back into the academic context, and Professor Garrett helped me very much with this. And I would say that in the classical language training at U of T, it also necessarily, for me at least, it reinforces the colloquial. They sort of mutually reinforce each other. And sort of in passing, I would say that the classical Tibetan language training is peppered with some colloquialisms. And the reason I mention that is because there have been vast benefits from my language studies at U of T. I would say it's some of the best of all of my training in Tibetan language that I've had. Obviously, my main language teacher has a traditional background, but also a strong command of English, and just the proof is in the pudding in a way. Also in the field, working with informants that are Tibetan language speakers, there's an immediate rapport and an ease, and I've, in a way, already by having some command of Tibetan language, I've proven that I am vested in their culture and their language and their religion, which helps build this rapport and trust between the ethnographer and the informants. Into my professional life, I work in many, many hospitals, and many Tibetans who are patients, family, or staff. I've worked closely with them, and that language skill, again, sort of proves my vested interest in their culture and also religion by default. Most Tibetans are Buddhist, not all. And it makes for an immediate connection, and it also helps with information sharing. One of our hospitals, for example, has a predominance of Tibetan staff, and I was there recently. Every 5 seconds I was meeting a new Tibetan staff, and there was an immediate connection there because of the language training, which came from both my traditional studies, but also most recently at U of T. So my engagement with Tibetan through the language studies program at U of T has helped keep up my colloquial and also classical use of the language. And then in the prison context, I've worked with many Tibetans, actually. One story that I'd like to share is a Tibetan that I met who was in protective custody because of the nature of his crimes. It can't be in the general population. So I had to meet him privately, and I could tell from the energy that he was quite distressed. It's a very high stress, difficult, and regimented environment. And immediately we spoke in Tibetan, and I was able to give him a picture of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, so one of the many things that we do as prison chaplains, images, giving texts, and other sort of religious materials. And there was an immediate connection there. The next time I saw him, still in protective custody before he moved to a minimum security unit, he told me what it was like for him the first time when this tall white guy who speaks Tibetan shows up at his door, if you will, that he had previously a feeling of a rock in his chest, and that somehow connecting with me in part through the language too helped dissolve, start the process of dissolving that rock, which was this stress that he was feeling. And then this connection has carried on into the minimum unit. So another example of the Tibetan language skills infiltrating both my hospital-based professional life and prison-based professional life. And the last thing I'll say is that in my life as an officiant, I can offer, because of my language skills in part developed at U of T, I can offer bilingual ceremonies to Tibetan couples. I've done bilingual ceremonies in Chinese and English and Hindi and English, not yet in Tibetan, but it's something that I can offer to the Tibetan community. And another sort of milestone that was wonderful was being asked to give a talk at the Canadian Cultural Centre in Toronto, and being able to do it in Tibetan and hearing, various moments where the crowd was laughing as I was trying my best to pronounce in the correct way. It was just really quite thrilling to be able to, I felt in a way I was giving back to the Tibetan community that has given so much to me by saying through the language some of the appreciation that I have for them and the other things that I was saying in the talk.